everyone, this is Dillon.
And this is Fortune, also known as A Restless Mind on YouTube.
And welcome to episode 5 of Cinescussion.
Hey everybody, hope you're having a good time.
Hello, we're going back and forth this week on a lot of things that we wanted to talk about. We ended up wanting to kind of do more of kind of a freestyle episode.
Definitely.
Where we go a little more off the cuff than we usually do with our topics. So we hope to get some feedback. Let us know if you like it. We're going to be talking a lot about some new movies that have come out, a little bit about story transitions from video games into film, and overall just kind of our ideas of what's going on within this storytelling space.
Yeah, agreed. We both have a couple of ideas for shows that we both are kind of pitching to each other, but they kind of take a little bit more research from both of us before we're ready to talk about them. So, we were just talking, we realized there are some movies we'd seen recently, including Suicide Squad, and just a lot of game adaptions that, for good or bad, why we think some are more successful than others, and why some of maybe the pitfalls that they run into. Also, some of our favorite games that we think would make great movies or TV shows. And that's a subject that I'm kind of excited for here in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. I didn't want to go into full reviews, but
Sure.
Since I've been vaccinated and since there haven't been a whole lot of people at the local theaters that I go to, I have been back. I've been seeing a lot of the new movies that have been coming out, and I wanted to give some quick impressions on 3 before we kind of go into a deeper conversation on Suicide Squad.
Sounds good.
But over the last couple weeks, I saw Pig, starring Nicolas Cage.
Which I still want to see very much.
Oh, yeah. Excuse Rose, the dog. I saw Old, M. Night Shyamalan's new movie. And I saw The Green Knight.
That I also want to see.
Yeah. Let me start with Pig.
Sure, please do.
Quick impressions. Beautiful cinematography. Incredible performance by Nicolas Cage, which I'm saying unironically for once. Not for once. I actually we've talked about this before, and I've unironically enjoyed Nicolas Cage for a very long time.
He can shine sometimes, and sometimes he's just very Cage.
He just doesn't say no.
No, he doesn't.
Whatever movie it is.
What was it, that college humor skit about Nicolas Cage's agent, or so somebody did a skit? It was fantastic because it really would explain everything.
It was Nicolas Cage's agent. He was like, "You play Superman's cat." I love it. Let's do it.
There was one that's like, "You're just an ass," and he's like, "That sounds great. Let's do it." He's like, "That wasn't even really a script. I was just making it up." Well, maybe we could call someone and make it a script or whatever.
That's exactly what it's like. But I don't know if it's the Nicolas Cage assance right now, but I'm calling it the Nicolas Cage assance because the last 3 indie movies I've seen with Nicolas Cage have been phenomenal.
What, Mandy, Color Out of Space, and then this?
And then Pig.
Yeah, and then the director for Mandy was the same guy that did what was it called, The Black Side of the Rainbow, or
Under the Black Rainbow.
Under the Black. It was like Over the Black Rainbow, the Black Rainbow. It's something like that. But I remember seeing the trailer. It was really interesting.
We're super ignorant. We don't know.
I know. I feel bad.
The Black Rainbow.
There's black and rainbow in there.
Yeah,
it looked cool.
And I can't remember the director's name. It's
Pantos something.
Cosmos.
Pantos Cosmos.
Anyway,
I'm so sorry for butchering your name. You're great. I just want you to know.
Well, I saw Pig, and it kind of blew me away. So far this year, out of all the new movies I've seen, this has been my favorite. And it also, I had time to marinate on it because I saw it, and if you've seen the trailer, it kind of sets you up to think that. It kind of sets you up to think that you're going to get that standard run-of-the-mill revenge story that you would expect. And I'm not going to say what it's about, but it's not that.
Okay.
And I would say that the performance we get from Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff, who's in another movie I'm going to talk about, is just phenomenal. They play off each other so well. And the story is incredibly heartfelt and really surprisingly beautiful, and I can't wait to buy it when it comes out. I've been aching to watch it again. It really took me by surprise how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, something I thought was interesting with the trailer is that the trailer made me want to see it, but a lot of people got a different apparently they got a different vibe from it than I did, because people were like, "Is this like John Wick with a pig?" And I was like, it didn't necessarily seem like that to me, because there's even a moment where he's like mentioning like cooking and some other things, and his pig is I believe it's a truffle pig, so he uses it to find truffles, which a lot of people do when they're chefs or cooks. So I kind of thought maybe it was something like that, and I love to cook, so like for me, I was just interested to see what the movie ultimately ended up being about, basically. So and luckily no one spoiled it for me, and I've stayed off the forums when it comes to pig. Like when I see it, I just like, I'm out.
Good. Do it, because it's not one of those movies that if you don't know anything about it going in, it'll be better. I mean, I guess most movies are like that. Pretty much, I would say all movies are like that in a way. But this isn't some big surprise mismarketing reveal. I think that there might have been a little bit of intent in misdirection in the way it was marketed.
Okay.
But I also think those are the movies we're used to getting, and John Wick was so popular that we think Nicolas Cage losing his pig and the kind of roles he takes where he rages out, it's, we put our expectations together. Yeah. And we're like, oh, Nicolas Cage, John Wick pig, let's go.
You're probably right. That's probably what the internet basically just did. Yeah. That sounds like what they do.
And I'm not going to tell you what it was about, because I do want you to see it. I can't wait to pick your brain about it too.
Okay.
But I highly recommend it. It was beautiful. It was really fun. I can't wait to see it again.
It is on my list. I might see it this weekend. Like, we'll see. So
we'll pause for a second.
Sure.
Guys, out. Rose, out. Clap.
Sure.
Back in it.
All right.
Second movie I saw in theaters recently was M. Night Shyamalan's Old.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about this one, because, as you know, I saw the trailer and I really wanted to see it too, but I had some red flags. Like, for me, one of them was like, every time it shows someone who's gotten older, they're wearing the same clothes. I was like, so their clothes grow with them? Is that...
I'm not going to spoil anything, Fortune.
Okay.
Except that, no, their clothes don't grow with them, Fortune.
Then why have they grown in the trailer?
Well, you'll have to see to find out.
That sounds like a cop-out. Okay, fine.
Here's how I feel about Old. Less enthusiastic about it other than Pig. I will say it had an intriguing premise. We all saw the trailer and an idea of a beach where time moves very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a cool concept.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
You know? I will say what he does with that premise, M. Night Shyamalan gets really creative, and there's some really cool and interesting ways he uses that idea.
Okay.
Some of which lean a little bit too far into lack of realism. Some of it leans a little too far into silly sometimes, but he tends to bring it back to a little more horrific and understandable.
Gets a little too woo-woo.
Yeah, not to spoil any scenes, but there was a couple scenes where they're playing with this time idea, and you're like, I just passed that kind of believability barrier for me.
So like how I feel about Fast 9.
Yes, absolutely.
2 out of 10.
Also, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I usually give horror movies and thrillers the benefit of the doubt when it comes to characters making bad decisions.
Yeah.
This one, to get into this situation that these characters find themselves in, I have never seen so many blatant red flags that this is a bad idea before, I think, in any movie ever. It was so clearly a bad idea.
Like, that stuff turns me off. I'm like, so basically you just designed a script that only works because it's the world's dumbest people.
Right. Exactly. And like I said, and me, if I'm complaining about it's clearly a bad idea to do that, then you probably messed up, because every time I see somebody make a bad decision in a horror movie, I remind myself, you can't have scary movies without bad decisions.
I don't think that's true, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Like,
I think the average movie is... I think, like, the average horror movie, that's just, like, a cliche because people don't care about writing. But, I mean, that's not always true.
You're right. It's not always true. I don't want to throw that wide of a net. But I would say majority of the time when it comes to people getting killed in movies, they didn't do everything right.
That's true. I feel like that's why a lot of times I feel like some of the most tragic things are when someone does do everything right.
Yes.
Like I would argue the opening of Scream, right?
Mhm.
She's literally just there making dinner for popcorn, and our boyfriend's coming over. And what I think a lot of people when they watch that now don't realize was cell phones were a very new thing.
Yeah.
So no one would think that someone's calling them from like outside their house, like ever,
Yep.
So she's just having a conversation waiting for someone to come over, and then everything just goes right, and there's literally nothing she can do about it. Like if she calls the police, she's too far away. By the time they get there, she's dead. If she calls the police, he immediately kills her boyfriend. Yeah. And then when he does break in, she's not stupid. She runs to the back of the house. She literally grabs a knife. She grabs a weapon.
Yeah.
She has a phone in her hand, but at this point, like if she dials, he's going to hear it. So she sneaks outside, which is smart. Her parents are almost getting home. She checks the window, which wasn't really a bad decision because you need to know where he is, and he happens to be right there. And then he chokes her out, and then it's like she's right there and she can't scream for help. So like I feel like that whole situation was a series of she wasn't stupid. She did everything right. She even fought back and almost got away because she fought back. She just got completely fucked. You're like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and that's the sadness of that whole opening. Like, it's like,
all right, Drew Barrymore would have survived old.
I know I went on a rant, but I'm like, that's one of those openings that I think it works because she didn't do anything wrong. And there's just the dramatic poetry of them being right there and she can't scream for help because she's been, her neck's now messed up, and like everything just went wrong for her, and she wasn't a stupid character. She wasn't anything. She just got screwed. And I feel like there's something about that as an audience member. This doesn't feel like a stupid movie. It feels like that could be me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you always, because whether it's true or not, we always like to believe that we're smarter than the characters in the movie.
Right.
So I think those are the moments when you really connect with the characters or the victims. That's just my opinion, but
I agree.
To me, that's what elevates a movie and makes it a good horror movie versus when you have moments like that. And Kevin Williamson with his movies like Scream and stuff, he has the sense of dramatic irony that works really well. So but M. Night doesn't always have that.
He doesn't. No, it's kind of hit or miss when it comes to his character.
I agree,
but I will say, I was empathetic to the characters. I did want all of them to get through what they're going through in some sort of way. And just like all M. Night Shyamalan movies, or well, at least most of them, his themes are really on the nose. He's not shy about what his movies are about. And this movie is, it's
like drummed into your head.
It's like, appreciate the time that you have. I get it. But I will say that there's a shift in this movie, and it happens about a little past the halfway point where it's getting to nighttime on the beach. Mm-hmm. And when that shift happens, I think the movie got good. And there were some parts that were really emotional.
Really?
The actors did an amazing job.
Is this like the second act or the third act, or?
I would say kind of end of the second act, beginning of the third.
Okay.
Some of the kind of where the story is going starts to come to a head, and you start to see the fates of some of the characters, and they're coming to terms with the decisions they've made, and it really hit me. It was
so there's
really
some
emotional.
Good in it, though.
There's some good in it, yeah.
Okay.
There's a good amount of bad too. It's definitely a mixed bag. But overall, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody outside of like a matinee if you don't have anything else to watch. But I thought it was a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say I thought there was one missed opportunity with Old in the marketing because I love trailers.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have someone done like a Lorde style like slow cover of Muse's Time Is Running Out.
Oh yeah.
And use that as like the trailer song. I think that would have been so cool. Like that would have been cool.
Also, Alex Wolff, who was in Pig, also stars as.
Is that the guy from Hereditary as well?
Yeah.
I like him.
He stars as the child who the young adult actors in this movie have a very difficult job because they are playing children who are rapidly having physiological and psychological changes and coming to adulthood, and that's all addressed in the stress of it.
Which is weird because like they still have the minds of like 5-year-olds or something like that, right?
Well, they don't. No, they do as far as the education goes, but the way they go over the way their minds are working and the way that they can process what's happening around them.
Oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
So even though they haven't gotten any new knowledge, their brains are comprehending things differently and stuff.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And that's what I mean. Interesting. See, some of the things he explores in this movie is really well thought out and really interesting and really heartfelt. And then there's some silliness, and I don't think
you actually made me want to see it because it sounds like there's enough of interest that I would want to see. Because I think stuff like that's interesting, like the idea of not just aging, but actually talking about like the mental faculties that change and like so rapidly. That would be really hard to play, actually.
And you know what's funny? We've talked about this before, and Hereditary, which is probably my favorite modern horror movie that I've seen.
It's a very good
or
movie.
at least in my top ones.
Yeah.
We talked about this, and I loved Alex Wolff's performance in that movie and just how childlike he played his kind of fear state in that movie.
He's good.
I feel like maybe M. Night Shyamalan saw that and was like, that guy for this kind of grown child that we have to cast.
And that's actually the thing. I think before that movie, I'd never even seen him before. Like, he was just great.
Same.
Yeah, I think he definitely made a name for himself in that movie.
Yeah,
so.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And then my other impression is The Green Knight.
I really want to see that. I've been waiting for it for like 2 years or something.
As have I.
Yeah.
As have I. You know me, I'm a huge fantasy head. This one also landed as a mixed bag.
I love the actor. So
Dev Patel.
Yeah.
I have no problems with Dev Patel. He was phenomenal.
Everything he's done, I liked it. Like, I loved Lion too. I thought his performance and the direction and the cinematography of that film were amazing. Yeah. I love him in the newsroom. Like, he's great.
Yep. In this film, he plays a carefree young, hopeful to be knight who is the nephew of King Arthur. It's a King Arthur story, and essentially it's his story, his trials into knighthood, essentially. Okay. It's based off an Old English poem that some people may be familiar with called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Pretty on the nose.
Okay.
And it is a very kind of straightforward story about somebody earning their honor and the trials that they go through to be an honorable knight. Director in this movie shoots it in a way that is something that I would consider very art house. It's very beautiful, a lot of long, slow, lingering shots, not so concerned about the pace of the movie, really want you to
That's what the trailer
take it all in.
That's what the trailer seems like.
Well, what was funny about the way that it was shot is I saw it with my fiance and I was kind of listening to people talk as we were leaving the theater. And a lot of people were like, I think I understood it. I think I got it. Like, I think I understood what was going on. What's funny about that is the movie isn't very metaphorical. Like, it's super straightforward. It's just shot in a way that seems to be confusing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which is funny. I don't want to go into too much detail.
Do you think that was like an attempt to capture almost like the fact that it was from a poem or something like that? Like, he almost wanted the...
Yes and no. Yeah, I think maybe that there is. And I also think he changed some things for the poem from the poem for the film that I think worked really well, actually.
Okay.
But I think that I really don't want to spoil this one because I think a lot of people will really like it. I think that from a structure standpoint, it's very much a straightforward movie about a young man going through trials to earn his knighthood after a decision he makes.
Okay.
And his success and failure of those trials lead to the climax of the movie. You know.
Okay.
What I liked about it, beautifully shot, incredibly acted, amazing set design. I think there are certain things about this movie that could revitalize the fantasy genre in a lot of ways. I would almost call it like low fantasy, high fantasy, where it's low fantasy in the way where it's very grounded. You're watching a knight go through the world doing what he needs to do. There is magic involved, but the magic is almost handled kind of like how Gandalf's magic is handled in the Lord of the Rings movies, where
or like how it was in early Game of Thrones, where there's like some magic, but it's really light.
And it's not big flashy magic moments on screen. It's almost kind of under the radar, subtle decisions or changes in the world due to magic forces, you know?
Okay.
And I think that, I don't know what the budget of this movie is, but I feel like if this fantasy budget is given to a lot of different directors, there could be a lot of really amazing projects within the genre where you won't need Lord of the Rings, Endgame, Avatar.
$60-70 million worth of just visual effects alone.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the budget was spread a really long way. It was well acted. The set design was great. Some of the writing I didn't care much for. Some of the characters speak almost in a way that feels, or I don't even know about speak, but they emote in a way that feels a little modern to me. Like, kind of took me out of it at times where I'm like...
Do you feel like that's a director's call, like they missed some things? Or do you think it was like the intention for some
No,
reason?
I don't even know if he missed it or if it was his vision, but there are some characters in the way they express themselves to each other. I'm like, I feel like I could talk to this person on the street today. You know what I mean? There's especially
well, that's problematic. Like,
right, there's a character at the end of the movie where somebody is having to make a decision, and he's hesitating to make that decision. The other guy's like almost pretty much like throwing his arms up, like, "Come on, man!" Like, you know what I mean? Like he's like frustrated with his indecision. And I'm like, I've never seen that in a fantasy movie of somebody being like, I don't have all day. You know what I mean?
It's like a very modern stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. So there were little things that took me out, and also, unfortunately, I thought the movie was a bit boring. You know,
okay, but there's nothing wrong with that. You can appreciate something and understand why it's well liked and still have your own feelings. You know, I feel that. Like, so you felt like pacing wise, it didn't.
Yeah, pacing wise, it didn't work for me. Also, pacing wise, it didn't work for me, and also, the way the story was handled didn't have enough. It did have a sense of urgency, but the reason for that urgency wasn't particularly exciting, and I don't think that there was a lot of exciting moments in the movie.
Okay.
You know, there wasn't anything that kept me really engaged in the character's journey.
So the motive behind the urgency wasn't interesting enough to kind of keep you interested, basically, as a viewer.
Yeah. I'm not upset that I saw it. I thought it was beautiful. I think it could move the genre forward and kind of bring in a new version of modern fantasy that we haven't seen a lot of, and that's really exciting to me. I don't know if I'm going to watch it again, though.
Okay, that's fair. Fair. Yeah, I've been waiting for it for a while just because I like Dev Patel, and there was just a lot of buzz about it like a year or two ago, and then COVID happened and it got held or something like that, and then if I'm correct, like, because I remember reading about it a while back, and it just kind of took a long time to come out. Like, eventually, I think I saw a trailer a long time ago, and then it was like a teaser or something. I didn't see anything for a long time, so I was like, did it get shelved? Or like, I have no idea. You know, I was wondering.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of happy that it's finally out.
I will say, after the movie was over and I had time to think about the way everything concluded and the way it ended, I really liked the story that was told.
So you liked the story, you just found it kind of boring because of like the pacing of it.
Because of the pacing of it, exactly. When I was watching it, I was like, man, I was checking my watch. I was like, all right, let's move it along here. But when I think of the events that happened and the way that everything concluded, I appreciate it.
Do you think it's a film that could have been helped by cutting down the runtime?
No, I think it's a film that could have been helped by having the character go through similar trials of honor that he did, but having those trials be more engaging.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That actually makes sense. So the different points along the way weren't significantly building more interest.
He had to go through this to be tested in this way. He had to go through this to be tested in this way. It all made sense for why he had to be tested in those ways, but the events in the ways that he was being tested did not speed things up. It actually slowed things down quite a bit for me.
Okay, gotcha.
It really was based off an old English poem. It really was.
That is, I feel like that description is completely sound. Like, I understand what you mean. It's just like people are like, Paradise Lost is the greatest book ever. And I'm like, I've listened to it and it is beautifully written.
And it's
but
like,
it is,
right.
There's a lot of tedium though too.
And then you think about Paradise Lost and the story that's told, and you're like, that's a great story.
It's a great story.
But then getting through it, you're like, oh geez.
Yeah, like there's parts I'm like, I'm enamored. This is amazing. And then there's like another like 50 pages or something. And you're like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like when fucking Tom Clancy goes on for like 3 pages about a gun latch, you know?
Right,
You're like,
exactly.
I was into it for the first 2 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Then,
you're like,
but then you just kept going.
Like, helicopter.
It's like, all right. It's a great gun. Move on. Like, we get it. Like,
exactly.
You're right in the middle of something climactic. You're breaking my attention here. Stop it. Like,
but those are all my We have to talk about the Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
There is one more movie I saw.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Like I will have to say, for me personally, this is no judgment of the director or anything, but for my personal taste, I'm being all politically correct now for some reason.
Right.
But I think the first Suicide Squad is one of the worst superhero movies ever made. Like it is hands down. It was so bad that it wasn't even so bad it was funny. I was just irritated the whole time I was watching it. And it seemed like a waste because there are some really good actors involved, you know, and I can tell there are some people that really cared. And I also felt like Margot Robbie's great as Harley Quinn, and I felt like she just kept getting shafted with writing, though. Like there was like nothing for her to really do. And I felt like in this movie she got to be fun, like for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I also hated the first Suicide Squad movie. I don't know. I'm sure everyone's familiar to some degree about the studio interference that went into that movie and how what we received is just a mishmash of half a story and filler and montages. And
David Ayer was like, "Let me get my cut," like Zack Snyder. I'm like, I don't know. For that one, I don't know how much better I can get for me. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. Yeah, I would agree. I think at this point, let him do it. You know, what I mean? Because there are cuts in the original Suicide Squad movie where you see him and you're like, how did this lead to this? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, well, even the original trailer was different. Like, the whole scene with the Joker where he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just gonna whatever, really, really bad." And that shot looked good. And then the version that's in the movie, it's a different take. It's not as good as the take that was in the trailer. And there's this weird, like, effect that's supposed to imply, like, psychopathy or something, like losing their mind and weird edits and stuff. And I was like, literally, when that started, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, when I was watching it in the theater, I was like, what is happening? Yeah. Like, even the shot in the trailer was a different take. It was better. Yeah. And there wasn't all this stupid effects happening. Like, I could just see a good performance, you know? Like, so yeah, I was very confused when I saw that movie because even the trailer, some of the takes were different. And the take in the trailer was great. So I'm like, how do you decide to use a different take that's clearly not as good? Like, I don't, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it.
You know, funny enough, I never look forward to more of Jared Leto's Joker. Not to discredit Jared Leto as an actor, because I think
I love him as an actor.
Yeah, I think he's great too. And I enjoyed seeing his additional scene in Zack Snyder's Suicide Squad.
Yeah, it was cool.
I thought it was cool.
But I feel like even if someone has a cool idea or whatever, I feel like I know if it's going to shine unless there's good writing behind it. So
exactly.
So unfortunately, the Joker was kind of tainted because it was just a bad movie. But I feel like if he had been a good movie, he probably could have been better interested. He could have probably been more interesting. And even like when actors do a lot of ad-libbing and improvisation, it's based off of the material that exists usually. So if the material is good, if it's a good actor, the improvisation is going to be that much better. But like when you're improvising off of crap, like I don't know how much better it's going to be. I mean, I don't know. Like maybe that's just me thinking about it incorrectly.
I mean, the last couple Jokers we've seen too have been reflections of what society seems to be afraid of at the moment. Like post 9/11, we got The Dark Knight, and it was internal terrorism. Yeah. We just had Joaquin Phoenix's and somebody going through a mental health crisis and snapping to the point of murder.
That's the third one, though. Technically, Jared Leto's was the second one.
But my point, the point that I'm making is Jared Leto was what? You know what I mean?
But that's the whole thing. I feel like you could say that movie was what?
Right.
So, like,
I suppose, Jared Leto, I mean? He wasn't set up for success.
He was not.
No, he wasn't set up for success.
He wasn't. I don't feel like anybody in that movie was set up for success. Like, unfortunately.
No.
Like, I don't know how else to describe it. That's why I feel bad for that.
Jai Courtney got a role. He was set up for success.
Don't you start with me. He knows I'm not a huge Jai Courtney fan. I have nothing against the actor. Like, I have nothing against the actor. You're cool. Do your thing. But I've never been a fan of his performances personally. Yeah. That's just me. So yeah, he was Boomerang, and I was like, and the sad thing is, Boomerang is probably one of the better performances he's given, and I still didn't really care for it, but it's probably one of the better ones. I was like, he wasn't awful, you know, but it was fine. But his cameo in Suicide Squad was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. So James Gunn Suicide Squad,
and the new one I meant,
the new one, I really liked it, man. I thought it was way weirder than I thought it was gonna be.
It's James Gunn, man.
I know. I just didn't realize how DC has changed significantly over the last few projects outside of Wonder Woman 2. But
the first Wonder Woman represented a big change, though.
It did. But what I mean is, it feels like DC's production team is letting directors make the versions of these movies
Finally.
that they want to make.
Like, I think I've told you before, I really enjoyed Aquaman. I know some people don't
I
like it.
thought Aquaman was
James
the best.
Wan, I think, is one of the
I
best
don't get
directors
how you
alive.
cannot like Aquaman. I really don't get it.
Yeah, and James Wan's like one of the best directors alive, and he's like, okay, so I'm doing this movie that's super silly, so I'm not going to take it serious. He took it seriously, but he doesn't let the film take itself too seriously. You know what I mean? Like, but it is so gorgeously shot. Like, and I think I've said this to you 1,000 times, but the best way to describe it is it looks so much more gorgeous than it has any right to, considering like what movie it is, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
it's just like, oh, and then a beautiful color grade, like the shot compositions. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody did great. Like, I personally found Amber Heard fine, but I didn't feel like she really added anything to the character. But she wasn't bad at all. She was fine. But ultimately, I'm excited for Aquaman 2.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm excited for James Wan's coming back. So I'm so excited.
No, me too. I don't understand what's not to like about Aquaman. Whenever someone asks me if I think it's good, I'm like, well, Willem Dafoe rides a shark and fire lasers. You know, like, yeah,
Dr. Evil
good.
got what he wanted. Sharks with laser beams attached to their head.
I'm like the end is just an incredibly epic climactic battle under the sea with dinosaurs. Like, it's awesome.
That's a good way to describe it. Underwater dinosaurs, bro. And come on, Dolph Lundgren's in a movie. Like what do you say about that?
It's awesome.
And it's like awesome. And then it's like the same thing. You come back to Suicide Squad with James Gunn. Like, what did you expect? A rated R DC movie with James Gunn, and it's everything that I thought it would be. Like, it's wonderful.
So, I actually had lower expectations going in. I thought I was gonna like it. I didn't love it, but I somewhere in between those two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
thought I was gonna think it was okay.
If they would have broken the trope of ending a DC movie with a monster fight at the end, I think I could have loved it. You know, but that was one trope they didn't break, and I was like, another one. You know what I mean?
They always do, man.
I know. But I think the performances were great. The movie's funny as hell.
It's actually so much funnier than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I admit, I thought it was going to be okay. And I'll be honest, I was so jaded because I hated the first one so much. Even though I like James Gunn. I'm like, I don't know. But I'll be honest, just the first opening involving, I'll just say there's a moment where people are dropping out of a helicopter. And it's so good. Like, the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was laughing so hard in the theater. I was like, this is just the beginning.
I was laughing throughout the whole movie. The character work was really heartfelt and endearing. I cared about the characters more than I thought I would. Especially for these being like bargain bin trash can DC characters that you would never give a shit about.
Nathan Fillion has a cameo,
TKB,
and it is absolutely
TDK.
Yeah, it is
TDK.
Actually the best cameo. I'm like, who the hell is TDK? And then when you find out, it's so good. And you look like you hit the gym and everything for that part, which is great.
Somehow, I think John Cena stole a lot of the show.
He kind of
He
did.
kind of did.
And usually, I don't hate him, but he's never who I look to give a good performance. But he was great in this.
Yeah, I would never see John Cena on a poster like, Fortune, we got to go see the new John Cena.
Yeah, me neither. But I was like, you were right. He was kind of awesome in this movie.
He was awesome. He was hilarious.
What did he say? When it's fucking dope as fuck.
Yeah, there's a contest between him and another character, and John Cena's outshining characters like nobody likes to show off, and John Cena's like, they do when what they're showing off is dope as fuck.
It was fantastic. Yeah. And there's a whole situation with a rebel group it might be my favorite part of the movie. I was in tears. I was actually in tears. It was and see, that movie has the kind of humor that I like. Most of the humor that people find funny, I just find too predictable. And there's nothing wrong with you finding funny, but for me, my brain just goes, but this one, it actually had some it's dark, but it had some really darkly clever humor. And I loved it. It was actually a breath of fresh air. That sequence, the opening sequence, and then there are a few more in the movie that just... Yeah. And you were right. You were absolutely right. Before I saw it, you told me that King Shark was awesome. And
I told you, I was
so lovable.
I was like, why is the shark monster character the whole heart of this movie?
He is. Yeah. He is. He's I don't know how to. He's like an adorable Hulk. Like, I don't know what else to say about him. Like,
if the Hulk just wanted to be loved.
That's basically right. Yeah. The Hulk just wanted friends. Like basically.
And was given free range to be rated R and rip people apart.
So, dude, the scene in the fog was so good, bro. It was so good. And just so you guys know, I didn't know this until I saw the film. King Shark is actually voiced by Sylvester Stallone, which is freaking great. Better. It's so good.
Yeah. I think DC has had just a huge change in the way that they're handling these movies, and it was really rough for quite a while there. And if they continue to go in this direction of finding the right director for the right film
and giving them at least a decent amount of creative freedom, like, I
don't know if it doesn't seem to me like they reined in James Gunn at all.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the future, I don't know if they're going to do that with everybody. I think Suicide Squad. Squad made a ridiculous amount of money, so they know a sequel should be made, but people didn't like it, so they're like, "So James, you had this situation with Disney. They suck, right?
Yeah.
So what if we let you do whatever you want?"
Yeah.
And from what I read, the only request was, and it's just a request, it is not a requirement. They were like, "We would love it if you could make sure that you included Harley Quinn for Margot, but it's not a requirement. We just would love it if you could." And I bet you he had no intention of not having her in the movie. I mean, I doubt he probably would have. So.
I was also reading that his one of his non-negotiables was he wanted free range to kill anybody.
Which I'm so happy that they gave him that.
But you're right. I think in a movie like this,
Suicide Squad for a reason.
It's a lot easier to give somebody creative freedom over what kids will see in regards to Polka Dot Man than it is Batman. You know what I mean? Like, these are characters where they're like, no one gives a shit. Do whatever you want. You know what I mean? But then when it comes to Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern,
but I also feel
we got toys.
But I also feel like the reason the Dark Knight trilogy was was because they're not just DC films; those were Nolan films. You know what I mean? Like, it's. So I feel like if you have a good director, don't insult them. Like, if you hired them because they're great, let them be great. Like, I can understand certain no's because there's budgets and stuff. I get that. Yeah. But, like, you know, when it comes to creative things, like, we think you should cut these scenes and stuff. Usually these directors have crafted these scenes because they're very important for the script, you know? And it's like, I kind of want to see the director's vision. That's why I was excited. I think, no offense, your biggest marketing gimmick for this film was James Gunn. Let's just be fair here. Like,
absolutely.
And so they did what you should do. You brought in James Gunn. You literally said James Gunn from The Bride, Guardians of the Galaxy, and all this stuff. So let him be James Gunn. Otherwise, don't hire him. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why for the first time, like, even though Marvel's solid, it's okay. I was super excited when they were going to get Edgar Wright. So excited. Then when things fell through and it didn't work out, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know why it didn't work out. They probably weren't going to let him make, I mean, this is just an assumption, but I'm assuming they weren't going to let him make his movie. And he probably was like, well, then I'm like, no offense. I can make great movies. I'm just know them. Like, you know, like, it's like,
listen.
And now we're going to get The Last Night in Soho, so I'm fine.
I want to see Cary Fukunaga's It.
I still want to see that. I was so sad when he left that project because of the similar situations. It's okay if he's going to change the script. It's Cary Fukunaga. He clearly sold you in the beginning. That's why you hired him. Like, let him make the freaking movie. Like,
let him make the freaking movie.
And see, now both of those movies are super high grossing, so they'll be like, made the best decision. It's like, the first one was okay, it was solid. The second one was not. Like, but I mean, I would argue that's not really the director's fault though, because the book was kind of like that, from what I remember. But like,
yeah, the thing about the book though is it's interwoven. The stories are interwoven throughout, from childhood to adulthood. Mm-hmm. It's not one then two. It's kind of back and forth and back and forth. So it works as a longer novel because you keep getting this context back and forth. But admittedly, the adult story is far less interesting than the children's story. Yeah. So having him separated, it wouldn't make sense. So it almost would have been better if they maybe went back and forth and found a way to interweave it for both movies rather than them being adults in the second one. Because if that's the case, maybe you compensate by trying to find a different way to split the parallel timelines or something. Yeah. Also, surprisingly enough, some of the more gruesome like kills and some of the really dark stuff that happens in the book, excluding that one gross out of pocket scene that anybody who's read it is familiar with, which doesn't need to be in a movie. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, but a lot of like the really dark themes and really great kills and really scary kind of hair-raising, spine-tingly stuff didn't make it in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, to me, that was my issue with the movie. A lot of people are like, it's so good, it's so good. And I'm like, I feel like so many people are used to seeing so many shitty horrors that when something's decent, it's suddenly great. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with it. I think the director has a great shot list and stuff in terms of it looks pretty,
and
but nothing
Bill Skarsgård.
Huh?
And
Skarsgård was fantastic. He was so good as it. But like, my main issue with that movie was I never felt like it was terrifying. It felt creepy at best most of the time, and I feel like it should be terrifying. Like, and I feel like you need to like for instance, just my opinion, but like I remember the scene in the sewer was so uninspiring, where like there's no one there, and then from correct, like a balloon just pops and then it's just there, and then it just like cuts to a wide and you hear the kid scream or something. It's like the most cliched stuff. Like imagine like the kid turning around and it is like imagine this like this is just like, but imagine like it is just like kind of looking at him like this, like I'm turning my head to the side and it's not moving. First of all, that would be creepy if he's just standing there. And then imagine his eyes slowly looks at you. Yeah. And he starts to smile and his teeth are like the razors, but his mouth starts to split and the smile keeps happening. Yeah. Or something like that. Like something is eerie where you sit on him, like you let the terror build in the audience's mind. Like it's simple things. It doesn't have to be some giant CG running along the walls scene. No, it's like simple creepiness where you don't cut away and maybe there's no movement and then there is, and then he's looking at you and now you're trapped and now there's like some kind of morph happening that's so abnormal that it's horrifying or whatever, you know, like no one's saying, but like build tension so that by the time he dies we're screaming too, you know, like versus just like I feel like you almost know he just shows up, cut to a wide scream. It's like the most cliched thing ever. Like it's like
unfortunately that character, who the character's name is Patrick Hockstetter, unfortunately his death scene in the book, if that was in the movie, it was by far his backstory and his death in the book is by far the most memorable part of the book for me. So seeing him just kind of,
that's crazy that they've toned it down. It's like you already got the R rating, right? So
there were two parts in the book. I'm not going to go into the details of his death, but who he is, he's an incredibly disturbed child in the story. And just his story and the way it ends is all so gross and so uncomfortable, but so scary. And also there's one scene, I don't know how you would capture this on film, but there's one scene in the book that always stuck with me as a really horrifying idea that made me just fall in love with the book. And that's very early on, one of the children that's murdered. He's leaving I think a movie theater, and he sees the monster from the movie he saw because it takes on your greatest fear. Yeah. So he's being chased through like the woods by the swamp thing, and you know you get these really like in-depth descriptions of like his fear as like his face is brushing through bushes and he's getting the sting of everything that's happening as he's running for his life and twists his ankle and all of these things. But it's so unbelievable to him. Like he's like, this couldn't be. This doesn't exist. What's going on? As he's running through the woods, fighting to survive, and eventually he trips, and the monster catches him. And as he's being eaten alive, he just believes that he's gonna wake up because this couldn't be real. And I was like, none of that translated into the movie. You know what I mean? Like that, like kind of like deep fear of your deepest fear and not believing that it could be possible. At the end, it was just a clown shaking. You know what I mean? Yeah. It didn't work for me. See, that just sounds great, and I think you probably, with a good director writer, you could find a way to capture that. It's just, See that's even more disappointing. Like, because I'll be honest, I haven't read the actual book. I saw the original miniseries or two-part movie when I was a kid. It was like the TV one. Tim Curry. Yeah. And I'll be honest, that shit gave me nightmares when I was a kid. Just because Tim Curry. His performance was awesome. His performance was really great. It was so creepy. But I did read synopsises of the book, so I know like some of the differences between the book and the film and stuff. And so I mean, but I didn't know about I knew about the one really controversial thing. And so I knew that wasn't going to be in the movie. And I agree, no need for it to be in there. But yeah, like just that. I feel like when you have like the director on board, like you're almost excited, and that's a big part of it. And so to bring them on board and then not let them do it, it's like,
it's so frustrating. Like I will never know what Cary Fukunaga's like version was. I mean, we're gonna get a cool Bond movie, I bet. But like, yeah.
Are we gonna get a cool Bond movie?
I don't know.
Are we ever going to
I
get a cool
read some
Bond
article that said that due to delays and stuff, which doesn't make any sense to me, but due to delays and stuff, it's like the movie has to gross $900 million to make its money back. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense though, because like it had a certain budget. Sure, it's had marketing since then, it's been shelved, but like what would cause it to go to the point where it has to make that just seems like a silly article to me. I don't see how that's possible, but like I don't get that really.
Due to us not being able to make enough money on streaming. Well, to be fair, the Suicide Squad kind of proved this right, because it was an infinitely better movie than the first one, and it is wildly underperforming right now.
But at the same time, I would argue I almost expected that because of how bad the first one was. Because like if you think about it, like the average person, like a lot of people like Gunn, right? Yeah. Those are probably the people that showed up this weekend. But the average person that just saw the movie and thought it was terrible, they don't know about the director switches and stuff. They probably might not even know the names of the people that directed Guardians of the Galaxy. They just know they liked Guardians of the Galaxy. So to them, they just thought the last one was bad. So why would I see the second one? You know? So I think it's going to be one of those things where word of mouth carries people to keep going to see it. I think is what's going to happen. But that's just my opinion. But
and like you and me have talked about this too. This could be a big part of it. Is you and I are experiencing superhero burnout.
I really am. Like I'm really excited for superhero stuff now because I'm just so overwhelmed by it. It's like it's what all the large tentpole films are now. Yeah. Like you're just like, okay.
Even all of these smaller budget movies that I mentioned earlier, I raced to the theaters to get my popcorn and sit in a chair and watch them.
Me too.
The Suicide Squad, I could have done that, but I was like, I got HBO, man. I don't feel like going to the theaters.
If you want the truth, I was 100% going to watch it at home, but it was a friend's birthday.
Yeah.
And he wanted to see it in the theater, so that's why I went and saw it in the theater. I had no interest in seeing it in the theater. Like, to be honest, I was going to watch it at home, even though I like James Gunn. Mm-hmm. And I almost want to support him, but like, I'm just kind of sick of superhero movies. Like, I really am. Like, it's rare that I see one that's really good and really grabs me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first Deadpool was refreshing. The second Deadpool, I thought the second Deadpool was okay. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I still just like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but the first one, I won't lie, that one was really funny. Like, I was laughing quite a bit.
I will say, and it's just because there's some of my favorite superhero characters. I'm really excited and curious to see what Marvel does with the X-Men.
I am too. But they also feel like now that Marvel is owned by Disney, it's going to be all Disney Marvelified. Like, what I liked about Fox was they weren't afraid. X-Men felt a bit more mature. That entire series kind of did, even though some of them weren't as good as others. They took a more adult approach, you know? And I feel like now they're going to feel very much like Disney films. So I guess that's my only thing, because all the Marvel movies, they make look and feel the same. So it's hard for me to get too excited, because I'm like, I'm sure there's not going to be some amazing director, and even if there is, they're not going to let them make their movie. It's going to look like a Marvel product, and so it'll probably be fun.
Yeah,
but I don't know how much I'm gonna love it, even though I love X-Men. Like, I actually really like X-Men. If you want the truth, growing up, Spider-Man's my favorite Marvel character, but I think the X-Men were my second favorite thing. Like, I used to watch the X-Men 90s cartoon, all that stuff. Like, yes, exactly, bro. Gambit was my dog, dude. Nightcrawler and Gambit were like my faves, bro.
Yeah. Speaking of the X-Men, and I think this is a good transition into our other topic tonight.
Sure.
I don't know if why anybody else would be on the same page, but something that I haven't talked about on this podcast is I'm a huge fighting game head. Some of my favorite things in the world. And speaking of the X-Men, there's a huge campaign going on social media right now. #FreeMVC2, which is Marvel versus Capcom 2. I think that doesn't need any introduction. Like, even if you don't know what fighting games are, you know what Marvel versus Capcom 2 is, or you've seen it in some pop culture reference. It's kind of transcended its original kind of just video game.
And I'm a fan of Maximilian as a streamer, and he was talking about it. So I know about this one.
We haven't been able to play that game. It's been unavailable for over 7 years. So there's a huge push to bring that back.
And that seems ridiculous. Like, even with like some kind of merger or something, it just seems kind of nuts for it to take that long. That doesn't make any sense.
Like, everything changed with the licensing deal with Fox and Disney. Because there are so many characters who the rights have been redistributed and moved around so often that I couldn't imagine trying to put together a new one, let alone kind of remake an old one to be available.
It's probably what's going on with Spider-Man right now. Like, Sony has Spider-Man and all the Spider-Man villains, so now they're making their own universe, which I think is kind of smart. They're like, we're not giving it back because so we have to keep making stuff so that we don't lose it. So it's like, fine, Venom. Venom and Carnage.
We'll make our own Spider-Man. We'll get Tom Hardy.
Yeah, even though I didn't think the first one was that great. I'm still seeing Venom 2 because Carnage is one of my favorite villains ever.
Yeah.
And he's never in a freaking movie. So the fact that he's in a movie, I have to go see it. Like, and I like Woody Harrelson, so I'm like, Woody Harrelson's Venom. Like, let's go.
That sounds like
why not?
You know, like on paper, that sounds
Morbius is coming too, or Morbius.
With Jared Leto.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care.
Neither do I. I love Jared Leto, and I don't really care either. I'll be honest.
Even with Carnage, I'm like, I actually really didn't like the first Venom movie.
I didn't either.
I don't expect to like this one, even with Woody Harrelson, and I also love Carnage, and the idea of a Venom Carnage movie sounds amazing.
Did you see the trailer?
Yeah.
The new one.
Oh, is there a trailer too?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see
There's a second trailer, and I won't lie. There's a funny part. Like, he's going to fight Carnage in a church, and then Carnage comes out and roars, and Venom goes, "Oh, shit!" And he hides inside of Tom Hardy, and Tom Hardy's like, "What are you doing? Come out." And he's like, "No." And he's like, "What are you doing? That is a red one." he's like... And I won't lie, it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, it's Carnage and Woody Harrelson and...
Well, I'm I'm not going to be super pessimistic. I'm going to choose to be excited. I'm going to hope it's good. It's also how I feel about NetherRealm Studios making the next Marvel fighting game. I'm going to choose to be excited.
I have to be honest, I like NetherRealm games, so I'm kind of excited about it.
I do too.
But
I also like NetherRealm games, but I also wouldn't be excited if Capcom announced that they're making the next Mortal Kombat. I would be like, why? That's not...
It's like NetherRealm's good at making Mortal Kombat games.
Right. Capcom is great at making Marvel games.
That's true. You also love Capcom, though. Like, I have to admit, you do. You love Capcom. So I think anything that you love not being made by Capcom when it was, you're like, why? Like, why must this occur?
Yeah. I think when Capcom is, like, on and doing really great work, they are my favorite game studio. But they also have so many misses that it's like you don't know if you're going to be really excited or utterly disappointed. It's kind of like being a Kanye West fan.
Or an M. Night Shyamalan
fan. Or an M. Night Shyamalan fan. Like, you're like, this person is capable of greatness.
Yeah,
like,
and you're like, every now and then we get something great.
Exactly.
It's like Split. That was so good. Glass.
Yeah, exactly.
The ending of Glass till this day, though, I'm so happy it was made because I thought it was so stupid I could not stop laughing. Like, I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, I'm gonna drown in a puddle.
You drowned in a puddle.
And then I cracked a joke. I was like, "What, is Sam Jackson gonna die falling out of his chair?" And then,
out of his
then he fell out of his chair.
God,
I was like, I legit thought it was a joke at first. I was like,
and James McAvoy is like, I'm just gonna pretend to be someone else. I'm gonna pretend to have a personality that's not working on this movie.
He's like, I don't know what's happening with the script, so I'm gonna be Bobby. Like, or whatever. I'll die as the beast. Like, that'll teach him.
But let's talk about we haven't talked about video games much on here yet.
No, we haven't.
And we kind of had the idea to talk about the state of storytelling when it comes to video games.
Especially in terms of its adaptation to films. Like,
yeah, and vice versa. The two don't seem, it's not quite the chocolate and peanut butter than you would expect, because
there's some good ones.
There are, but those are more the exception than the rule.
It's true.
A lot of
it's
the time.
True.
You know what I mean? And in both directions, you know. Movie tie-in games, I don't expect to like them.
It's true. I also feel like a lot of times with them, they feel like, to me, like the studio wanted to make profit off of a game franchise, but they don't really know about the game or are passionate about it, because some of the things that are even emphasized in the movie aren't things that people who love the games would care about. Like, that's why even some of them that aren't amazing, that are okay, when you could tell the director put forth the effort to have things in there that they know the fans will love while still trying to make it a good movie, I appreciate that. Like, I'm somebody that I liked the first Resident Evil movie, even though technically it's based off the game, but it's technically a completely made up prequel that also added in a new character in Alice. But through them, I like the idea of the fact that it doesn't just start with the outbreak. You actually go down into the lab and you realize that the computer that seems like the bad guy was actually the whole reason that it hadn't spread, right? And them going in is what triggers everything, right?
Yep.
But you still get to see a lot of the things that you knew from the game, and then you could get to imagine that these are the first people that experienced this before the city did, you know, like the liquors, which I think looked fantastic and were some of my favorite things in the game. The bloodhounds were great. Like the zombies were great. You know, I actually really liked the first movie, and I thought that it was fun, and it was Paul Anderson, who also did the first Mortal Kombat remake, the first Mortal Kombat movie, which for its time was considered quite good for a video game movie. Today. Like I still think today it's actually a pretty good movie, and you know what the difference between it and the new one is, which we can talk about. The characters have charisma. They like, even though there's not a whole lot of backstory, they do set things up. Like. Like, you know, Johnny has his whole thing, in Hollywood, but then also Kano is really set up as a character. So is Shang Tsung. You don't know why, but he seems fascinated with Sonya. And there's the whole ploy to get Sonya in the bolt, but then there's things like Shang Tsung like putting him in his place, like where he's like, if you so much as touch your Kano, you're gonna need a seeing eye dog. It's like there are all these things, you know, like but they're setting up the characters so when they get on the boat and meet each other, you already know all their personalities. You already know why Liu Kang is there. Like you know all this stuff, and they feel like they have reason. They each have, and what I like about it, each of them has a reason to be there. Right? It's not just like, oh, it's a tournament, blah blah blah. They have a reason to be there. They don't know what they're getting into. Liu Kang is the only one who knows what he's getting into, and even he doesn't fully know what he's getting into because he doesn't even believe that Raiden's a real thing. Until Raiden reveals himself in the ship, and he's like, "Holy shit, you are Raiden!" And I think by then, and Christopher Lambert, come on,
that's such
Highlander is Raiden, like, just come on, that's so cool. And I still remember when he's sitting on the steps and he's like, "I don't think so." And then like his eyes have the electricity. It's like frightening. It's like, and that's the other thing, new versus old. Raiden in the old films establishes dominance. He has a sense of presence. When he's around, you will act right. Like, you know what I mean? And Lord Raiden should be that way. In the new movie, I feel like he's there because he's Raiden. And even when he does big things, they don't really seem like they're that big of a deal. He doesn't feel scary at all.
Not at all.
He even feels like, and I don't even know if it's just a miscast, but I just feel like it's also just, I would think the director would go, no, that's not working. Like, we need to do this, you know, or we need to redo the scene. Like, there's nothing here that establishes that this character has any dominance. And I would also say,
Lord and protector of Earth.
Right? Yeah. Like, and here's the weird thing. I think we agreed on this. So the Mortal Kombat remake, what was weird about it to me was the first like 35, 40 minutes, I was actually enjoying. Like I was like I feel like the opening 10, 12 minutes, for one thing, it's really good. Like the first like 12 minutes, the opening scene, I mean, I'm not trying to be insulting, but to me, it felt like that, and then the rest of the film were directed by two different people.
Absolutely.
Like it was the most night and day thing. I was like, if the rest of the film had been like the opening, like, and then the weird thing is, I like Sub-Zero hunting them down. I loved Sub-Zero in the real world with like the ice thing, hunting them down. I thought that was a cool concept. I felt like it was decent. It was actually pretty good until they got to Raiden's temple. Like once they got to Raiden's temple, it's like the movie just starts going downhill and it never recovers. And then all of the fights, like almost all of the fights in the movie after the opening scene are so underwhelming. If you've seen good martial arts choreography and good movies, it's so underwhelming. And you would think that a Mortal Kombat movie made in like 2020 or 2021, the fight scenes by now should be epic. Like, and I don't know what the fuck Rico was.
I think the only other exception is I think the first scene is clearly the best part of the movie. I remember before the movie came out, they used that like first 9 minutes as advertisement.
It's like the first 11 minutes or whatever. Yeah,
and I remember watching that and being like, God damn, this movie's about to be good.
I was like, I have faith. And then I'm like, shit, I would have shown the first 10 minutes too.
But yeah, also Sub-Zero and Jax fighting, not great, but still like
it was okay. But that was all in the first 35 minutes. That's what I'm saying. And and even in the first 35 minutes, it's really short. But I think I actually thought the camera angle and the moment where Sonya puts Kano on his ass was great too. Like it's really quick. The angle is like this flipping upward angle as she flips him. It looks really good. Yeah. And then, but it's like after they get to the temple, I don't know. Like the story and everything just kind of comes to a halt.
Well, like, I think they changed a lot from the game, and I think the lore of the movie is really bad. I think it's dumb. And I think what's the term that they use for the dragon mark? Do you remember?
No. It wasn't worth remembering. It was like, oh, it's like a special thing. You have to kill someone to get it, and it's your special power. I forgot the word.
Arcana? Was it?
Arcana. Yeah. Arcana. I was like, and apparently Jax's Arcana is that he just finishes his metal armor.
Yeah.
Like,
so
what?
yeah, they wrote themselves into a. I don't know who came up with that idea, but they wrote themselves into such a hole with that. Like, so to get an Arcana, you have to kill somebody with an Arcana. Is the point? Like, here's the thing about the game. The game is a really simple story. It's all background because the point of the game is to rip each other's heads off and get cool combos. But there are fighters and combatants from different dimensions who choose sides in this ancient war, and the winner of this tournament that they all fight over gets to conquer the realms.
Yeah. And in the first movie, you feel like
It's
you
easy.
Understand that, and you know the stakes, and you know the story. And the
Right.
cool thing is, each of the villain and the people, each of them have motivations, right?
Yeah.
They have motivations for what they do. Even Shang Tsung,
Yeah.
he wants to win, but he also clearly wants Sonya, right?
Yeah.
Like he has motivations, and Katana does too.
Mhm.
She doesn't want her own side to win, right? Like, so she's kind of like a double agent in a way, you know?
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like, they're there because they need to be, and
They're there because bad things will happen if they don't.
Yeah, basically. And I don't know anything about the characters, really, except for the new guy who's not a character.
Cole Young.
Cole Young.
His Arcana was literally plot armor.
It was literally plot armor,
armor.
and it's basically an extension of Jax.
Yeah.
Except instead of just making metal arms, he could cover his whole body in metal. Ooh.
Yeah. There was a lot to not care much for it. They throw away a lot of fan favorite characters that could have a lot of potential in a longer running series. Like Reptile's thrown away, Melina's thrown away.
And I don't think Cece was bad. I think the one time she actually had a line where she was like, "And you're worth nothing," and she licked the knife. I thought that was cool. But I'm like, that was a great scene. She was cool. But I'm like, but again, she has no backstory. She's just there. You know, like I felt like a lot of the characters were just there because they're like, oh, fans will like this. They're in the movie, therefore good. Yeah. Like Cabal, same thing. He looked cool. He looked like Cabal.
They understood like how Cabal should fight in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it was cool.
Except the choreography throughout the movie wasn't very good, but his movement
more so with the effects.
And the effects and speed were good. Yeah. And the one thing I'll give them credit for, I thought that Kung Lao's entrance was awesome. Kung Lao's entrance was good. And I actually felt like he fought like Kung
Lao at the dinner table.
Yeah, he was the best cast probably character. Like he was really good. Like in terms of all those people, like he was. Well, no, the guy who played Kano and also B Hung, like Sub-Zero was great. Like the actor who played
Scorpion
and Scorpion, yeah,
not great in the movie, but just great casting.
Yeah, because he's not in the movie much. Yeah. Like that troll, and then he comes back for no reason. It's like, oh, blood on the knife. Somehow I'm gonna leave hell. Like you're like,
what's the actor's name? He's a very famous actor.
The Japanese
actor who played Scorpion.
Totally spacing.
But you got to make sure he gets his screen time. So he very awkwardly keeps removing his mask and putting his mask back on in conversations.
Yeah. They're like, so you know who I am, like, because it would be insulting to have me in this movie and not show my face. Yeah, like I'm such a legend. Like, why wouldn't you show my face? They're like, good question. Like, good question.
Good question. Remove the mask. Put it back on. Remove it. It's a cool mask. Put it back on.
Yeah. And the Scorpion Sub-Zero fight. It has some cool moments, typically moments that involve Sub-Zero using his ice in interesting ways. But outside of that, the fight's just very basic too. It kind of it's better than the other ones in the movie. But like honestly, Sonya and Melina's fight is not great. Like there's some moments where Melina does Melina stuff, but overall they're very slow. There's a lot of cutting because you can tell they're both very slow because they're probably not really martial artists. And it's like it's okay to have stunt doubles like to get some good stuff going. You know, like have some fight choreography or do some stuff. And like even Liu Kang, it's like it's a bunch of visual effects with Cabal and then slow motion shots, so there's no urgency, there's no fast fisticuffs, there's nothing of that. There's none of that really going on much, really, Yeah. And then what's happening is extremely basic. And all the fights, I feel like they're treated like they're not important because they all happen within a time span of 5 minutes or something towards the end. They're all just like shipped to each other to fight. And they're like, oh, and Jax's with his is the worst. Like, I don't know what that is, not Rico. I don't know what the hell that is. But like, He looked like a human version of the 1995 Goro.
That was
Like, that's what he looked like
wild.
to me. I don't know what that was, but
that was wild.
yeah, it was. I don't even know what he was. Like when they said Rico, I was like, what? Like
Yeah.
I was like, when did this happen? Like,
First of all, Reiko's not even a good character.
no.
Like,
And if you are gonna go with him, you should go with that non-canon story where he's secretly trying to steal Shao Kahn's throne or
Right.
whatever. Like that would have been more interesting, at least.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking, man. But I do think that there's a trend to talk about here within video game movies. I think that filmmakers who really care about their craft, who make most of the movies that we tend to really enjoy or love, they tend to want to experience stories through film or sometimes novels. I don't think, even though with the growth of video game storytelling predominantly over the past console generation, so like the last 8 years, I think video game storytelling is kind of entered a new era of emotional depth. But at the same time, between those moments of emotional depth, you also have to have player engagement and player agency.
Yeah.
So it's almost having short films in between gameplay loops.
That is kind of what's happening. Like a lot of these films, they give you a lot more control, and
Right.
they let your characters actually feel way more human than they've ever been, which is good. And
Yeah.
then there are basically short film cutscenes in between, and nowadays the graphics are so good that sometimes it's almost seamless, which just makes the world which just makes it feel even more real. You know, like,
Right. So I think that when it comes to the state of video games in film, I don't think a lot of filmmakers who really care about the craft of filmmaking have any interest in adapting video game movies.
I think that's probably true a lot of the time, unfortunately.
I just don't think the storytelling is on the same level yet. I think
it can be.
I think it can be. I retract that. I think it can be, but I think when it comes to adaptation, there are things that I'll experience in a single player game that if it were to be adapted in film successfully, the budget would have to be very high.
Yeah.
And why would a studio finance that?
Yeah. Well, but that's what I would say though. If the franchise is big enough, you know, like Warcraft got made. Like I didn't even hear it was a great movie, but I think it still made like $400 or $500 million or something like that. Yeah. So like clearly there's money there. Like there's a crowd, but I think they'll appreciate if you do it well. And I think that's something. And I think that's something because I think both of us also admitted that we liked the Silent Hill movie, right?
The first one.
The first one. Yeah, I never watched the second one. It didn't look
Which
good.
is my favorite horror game series ever.
And,
so
I have to admit, I haven't played those games, but I know the synopsis of... I know the gist of the synopsis. And of course, I know who Pyramid Head is. So
right.
Yeah.
Which is weird because that wasn't a story that would have made sense from like a fan's perspective or understanding what Pyramid Head represented would be in. But as fan service and as like a big scary Jason, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
the
pretty
scene with the skin,
fucked up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That was...
He degloves the woman's body.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
That was crazy. And I also thought they did a really good job of the I really liked the transitional moments, like between the worlds. Like at the time, that was actually pretty terrifying, and like how drastically the world changed that she was in. Like it was actually really scary. Like I
the
thought
monster
it was cool.
design was awesome. The overall overarching plot of the little girl and what happened to her and the way that this town was affected was all worked really well.
Yeah,
the acting was good. I really liked the first Silent Hill movie.
Yeah,
and
that was Sada Mitchell, right? Or she was from Pitch Black.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. But
and what I appreciate is even when I'm a huge fan of something, I try not to be protective over it. You know what I mean? Because even if the movie's bad, like the second movie, for example, that doesn't change my experience of the original first 4 games.
Me neither.
You know,
just like if I like a series and then one's bad or something, I'm like, fine. I'll feel like there is one time that this has happened to me though.
What's that?
It has overshadowed the final season of Game of Thrones. It's hard not to for me because I waited so long. And that's also because it was so good that it deserved a climax. And I know I just started something because, and the worst part is the first 6 seasons are so fantastic, even though I haven't read the books, but as a show, they are so fantastic thematically. And then 7 is not awful, but you start to see signs of stuff like, and then 8 is a dumpster fire. And I don't know. And it's one of the few times where it did soil something because the show is so good. It's hard for me to want to rewatch it when I know how terribly it ends. Like I
Yes.
just like when I tell people are like, should I still watch it? I'm like, watch through season 6 and then make up your own ending in your mind. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. So,
Okay.
and I know I just started something because you've read the books as well.
I actually thought for a second, I thought you'd read the books too. And
I
what
have not
I
read
thought
the
you were
books.
going with was the way the show concluded affected how you felt about the books.
No, because I have not read the books
That's
yet.
what I was prepared to talk about. So,
Feel
yes.
free.
The way the show ended has had no effect over my feelings in the books.
Okay, that's good.
It has, similar to you, affected my feelings towards the first. You said 6 seasons. I say 4 seasons of like perfection.
You didn't like 5 and 6?
I did like 5 and 6, but I actually think the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones is some of the greatest television we've ever got.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah, or at least some of the greatest television I've ever got.
No, it is. Yeah,
you know,
I put it up there as possibly the best show I'd ever seen. Like,
yeah, and then 5 and 6 were good, but I did feel like after season 4 they had passed. Well, for the most part, not entirely, but certain characters had passed their plot lines that had been written by George R. R. Martin in the novels. Not all the characters; some of them were still kind of getting there, but it had taken a dip in quality once that blueprint was gone. And I think there's
especially since you have something to compare it to, like with the books, like
and I think it's probable that George R. R. Martin gave them a blueprint of where the story was going.
That doesn't mean that they
that doesn't mean they executed it properly.
No.
And also, even though we've been waiting, has it been a decade?
It was like 10 years you're waiting for this.
The Winds of Winter.
Fine. Oh, are you talking about?
I'm talking about the book. No, I actually think I have to look up when Dance with Dragons was released, but I think it's been probably over 10 years since we've been waiting for that next book. He's
getting older, which is scary because like people are worried he might something could.
Right.
I hope not, but I mean something could happen to him, and then.
So the plan is for 2 more novels, Winds of Winter and Dreams of Spring.
I hope he's writing both of them together.
That would be wonderful. But I would imagine if I was in his position and I had given the blueprint to the ending of my story to somebody, and even though they didn't handle it well, if I would have seen the fan outcry to how it ended, that would probably affect how I would want to end my story.
It could, but
it would be hard to not consider it. And I think that's also slowed down the Winds of Winter.
But the crazy thing to me is that like someone had told me that like who liked it.
Yeah.
They were like, I think you just didn't like how it ended. And I was like, the crazy thing is I feel like almost everything that happened could have happened and worked out just fine, but it needed to be earned. And I felt like what happened was not earned. Like if that's where you wanted to go, then you needed like another season in between this. And that next season you should have shown it certain things going in this direction so that this didn't feel like it was out of left field. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
Like it's not that I don't like it. It's just that for one thing, a lot of things that have been happening all season, it doesn't really follow the character at all, especially for Daenerys. You can say, well, she did this and this. Yes, she did awful things, but she always did them to bad people. Like she never did them to like, and then even in this situation, like I can understand if she just flew up and burnt down the castle because she hated Cersei and she was like, I'm not honoring that after she killed blah, blah, blah. Fine. But the women and children in the town, like that's nothing she would have ever done all season. And if your answer is, oh, she just became the Mad Queen, that's terrible writing. And there's a difference between like foreshadowing is not character development, no. and that's I don't know if they got that. Like it's like
I think they did get that. I think that they got a contract with Disney for a new Star Wars trilogy and said, we gotta go. Yeah.
You could be right.
Fortunately, I think there was a Game of Thrones game. I think there was a Telltale kind of.
I think there was a Telltale game. Yeah.
I didn't get around to playing it, but
I haven't either.
I think that universe is ripe for more storytelling.
Me too.
HBO thinks so too. We'll see how those other adaptions come out.
Because I don't know who the writers are for this new show, like the head writers.
Speaking of HBO, speaking of HBO and speaking of kind of quote people who are passionate about these projects getting the budget that they need to do them. I was just reading, so we know that The Last of Us is being adapted into an HBO series, 10 episodes.
Yeah.
I was reading that the budget of this show is higher than the budget that Game of Thrones received.
That's exciting.
That's very exciting.
That's really
I
exciting,
think
especially because I think the last season had like a huge budget. Like it was like really
huge.
hot.
Yeah. So I can imagine
It was like multiple summer Hollywood movies like budget. Yeah. But that's why the visual effects and stuff look like Hollywood good. Like they look fantastic.
The Battle of the Bastards.
Oh, Woo! Battle of the Bastards is probably one of the top 3 best like large, medieval-esque battles ever. Like what? Battle of the Bastards, what? Braveheart and Gladiator? Probably.
Yeah,
probably like the 3 greatest seriously, like it's on par with like 2 of the greatest like dramatic action classic movies.
And characters like Jon Snow and Ramsay Bolton having face to face.
So good. So good.
Does television get better than that?
No. And that's why it's so upsetting.
Yeah.
And then my favorite character, Tyrion, stopped being Tyrion around episode.
He got conveniently stupid.
Yeah. The plot. Yeah. It's like I started to see it around 5 and 6, but he was just more quiet. But he had good ideas sometimes, but overall he was like less interesting. And I was like, what's going on? And then 7 and 8, for the love of God. I was just like, bro, Tyrion died 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, they just didn't know what to do. Honestly, I'm gonna knock George R. R. Martin a little bit. It also feels like after that he leaves King's Landing in the book, it also does feel a little bit like he doesn't know what to do with him.
Does it?
Not as much as the show. Not as much as like we need to hide all of the women and children
in the crypt when we know a necromancer is coming, which means that they're in danger in a crypt full of bodies. When you know that they're a necromancer, it's like I remember when he said that. Like I literally did a real life look to the side and scratch my head moment. Like I was like,
what are we doing?
Like when he said that, I was like, is he joking? Is there something? Oh, he's gonna probably say something like, we have to clear the people out of the crypt first, or something. Even that wouldn't work in the time, but I'm like, he'll say something, and then it's just like, get them down there. I was like, they're all gonna die. I was like, what?
And none of them died because
plot armor. We can't let Tyrion.
Are you plot armoring the side characters?
They plot armored everybody in the last season almost.
I'm really excited for really what this Last of Us show will hopefully mean for these mediums coming together.
Me too.
Because when it comes to cinematic storytelling, The Last of Us was a milestone in video games.
That opening scene, I knew I was playing something I hadn't played before. Like I was very, very in.
Yeah, at that time, I don't think there was a game that had hit those levels of emotional character depth. Yeah.
It's still one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. The first one. I still need to finish the second one. I'm loving it though. But
I'm happy you're loving it. I love the second one too.
Yeah.
I've actually the first one. It's not my favorite game. It might not even be in my top 5 games, but it's actually the game in which I've beaten the campaign the most amount of times.
I could see that.
Which is weird.
I know we both love Uncharted 2. Uncharted 2 and
I think it's just easy to play through. The first one is short. I think it's less than 10 hours.
Yeah.
Pretty confined story.
It's like a good movie. It's like playing a good long or mini series or something, I guess.
Yeah. The second one is 25, 30 hours. I just finished my second playthrough of that. I played through it again. I enjoyed it just as much the second time. I thought it was really good. I just finished playing the Final Fantasy VII remake. I just finished playing the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I thought it was incredible. First and foremost, I was nerding out to you over the phone.
You showed me that cutscene, and I haven't even played it. And I was like, Jesus!
Some of the characters are just handled so well, and the highs in that game are so astronomically high.
Yeah, and it also seems like anybody who's complaining that it's not exactly like the original, by the end you understand why. Like they're doing something more interesting with it, hopefully, right?
Yeah, the funny thing about that remake is it kind of has to justify its existence to be broken into parts,
Yeah.
Because it only takes place in the beginning of the game, which takes place in the city of Midgar, which I think was 3 to 6 hours.
It was something like
in the original game.
It was on one of the discs, if I remember right.
Yep. So to extend that to a 30-hour title, they don't slam dunk that. There's a lot of filler and some really dumb, bring me back 5 chicken side quests kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it gets down to the way the characters are handled, especially the main cast, Aerith, Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, Red.
Yeah. When you get to that group, I mean, I played the
it was
original.
incredible.
And I remember in the original, I mean, this is so long later, guys, so I hope I'll say spoilers, but come on. But like in the original, at the end, when like Sephiroth shows up and like just murders Ares, you're like, what? Like you're just like, no.
Like, I'm too young.
You're like, this can't. She's my healer. Like,
exactly. How am I supposed to get my party back now?
She's my healer, you monster.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, so one of my favorite memes is like, you have revive potions. Revive.
Yeah.
Revive.
Exactly.
We can't because the plot dictates we're not allowed to.
Exactly. But as I was playing through that game, the way the action scenes are handled and the effects and just the size of the set pieces that you experience in that game, I was like, this would be an amazing movie.
Yeah.
This will never be a movie. You know what I mean? Like, this will never be a movie. You know, there are things
they might. But I mean, if you think about it, they did side stuff like Advent Children and stuff like that.
I mean, on the scale that the game can provide.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's. I think it comes down to scale. I think when you think large scale film, you need an astronomical budget. It needs to be a slam dunk. You know what I mean? Of an idea. People who play video games, it's expanding. You know what I mean? And especially through COVID, the amount of people who have interest in playing video games has expanded astronomically. I think the current console generation is outselling all of the previous ones.
It actually is. Yeah, it's the fastest selling because it's like something they can buy right now during.
We're stuck inside.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I think even Xbox said the same thing. They're like, yeah, because like I think PlayStation's outselling it right now, but the sales for Xbox are fantastic. Like the Series X, like it's really good.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I'm sure everyone can hear, and you know, I just have such a passion for stories, whether it be like the books I'm reading, the movies I'm watching, the games I'm experiencing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think it's so clear that when it comes to large scale, insane set pieces, I think we've gotten to a point where you can get them more consistently and bigger in video games than I think a lot of movies provide right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And if we're also talking about other, like that one's coming out, like we were talking about beforehand, this happened, like some games that we love that we think would make great projects. For me, like one of my favorite games of all time is StarCraft. Like StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. It's so epic, but it would be so expensive. But like I understand why it hasn't been made yet, but I feel like now it could be. And you could even do like a rated R HBO show where it's really graphic and adult, like the way it should be, really. Like, I mean, even the way that the Marines are and stuff, like, it's not a kid's movie, you know? Yeah. But I feel like you could do, like, a Game of Thrones style budget mini-series, like series of StarCraft, and you could easily do 6 or 7 seasons of a great Oscar-winning show. I mean, absolutely. Especially everything that happens with Kerrigan and, you know, by the end of the game, the corruption, how she becomes the queen of the Zerg, and, like, and then that's a whole other endeavor, which that's the whole thing. StarCraft and Brood War, which is the expansion original, is my favorite, hands down, #1 favorite game of all time. And multiplayer-wise as well. I got really into multiplayer. I was really competitive with it, all that. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is I bought StarCraft 2 the day it launched, and I still never played it. And it's not because it wasn't good. It just, I think when it came out, it was almost like what you said when you're worried about like a story ending. You're like, I was like, I waited like 12 years for this to come out.
That's why I can't start a lot of shows.
Yeah, I was like, I waited like 12 years for this, and if I play it, it's going to be over. Yeah. And the weird thing is I've now had it for like 6 years, and I've just recently started playing it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to play it in all the DLCs, and then it's going to be over for like another 10 years or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to though. Like,
exactly. My thing, like, I have a little bit of that, but it's more so like everybody tells me to start so many different TV shows, and TV has become such an amazing medium for writers. But I'm like, dude, if I'm going to invest like 50 hours into this show, if it goes that long, and I don't like the way it concludes,
I know
I'm not going to sit there and be like, it's the journey that matters. I'm going to be disappointed.
That's how I feel about Game of Thrones. Like, absolutely. It's too long, and I was too excited about the ending. Also, there are so many things in Game of Thrones. I'm sorry for doing this. It's just, it frustrates me. There's so many things in Game of Thrones that are just left to the side that literally don't matter. Like the whole Jon Snow's origin, who he is. Everyone pretty much figured out, but by the time it's revealed, it doesn't really matter. Like, no one really cares. It's just like this. It's supposed to be this twist at the end of the season, but it's not, because we all know, and it doesn't really affect the story at all. It's almost like it's, at least in this version, it's almost like it's just there so that it seems odd because they're family. You know, like, it's like, okay, but a lot of things.
His resurrection.
And no, it makes no sense. You never find out about the Lord of Light at all.
No.
Like, they're talking about some sword thing. All of a sudden, she just lights a bunch of swords, but that's not what she said earlier.
No.
And then nothing. And then she just walks out and turns to ash. Like, you're just like, what? Like, dude, there are probably at least 30 major plot lines that are just dropped in that series and literally mean nothing by the end. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. And we move on. And we move on. I guess I'll watch The Leftovers. Not that's a really good show. Too.
I've heard it's really good.
It's really good.
It's like we'll go back to watching Breaking Bad again. I need to watch the one show I've never seen is The Sopranos, and I've only seen the first like 4 or 5 episodes, and I need to watch it because now there's like a prequel movie coming out, and I saw the trailer. It looks pretty cool. So.
Jazz and I watched The Sopranos for the first time last year.
Did you? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and you said how
great.
Good it was, right?
I the holy mecca of like current shows is The Sopranos and The Wire.
Yeah,
The Wire
and Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad's pretty up there for most people. I
think.
For
sure, Breaking Bad. I always say my favorite show is Breaking Bad because in a lot of ways it is, but the show I respect the most and kind of love the most is probably The Wire.
And that's the other big one I haven't seen.
Yeah, I can't sing that show's praises enough. It's so past good. The themes that The Wire deals with, the way that it develops its story season to season, and the way that the seasons intersect with different areas of what's going on in Baltimore, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I know when I was writing my film script for Epitomes, a producer wanted me to pitch it to Netflix. I never did, but a producer wanted me to pitch it to Netflix, and as an example of a good film Bible, he actually gave me The Wire first season Bible. So and apparently that's used by a lot of people as like a masterpiece of a film Bible. So even before they made it, those writers were on point. They knew exactly what they wanted, and it shows, right?
Yeah.
Like from what I've seen in this, because I've seen segments, I just haven't seen the whole show. It's on my ever-growing list.
It's one of those things where like recommending shows feels like recommending books to me. It's like I don't do it often unless I'm like really on point with what that person would like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only time I do it, because it really is saying like, hey, let me get 50 hours of your time. Yeah. You're going to love it.
And then the weird thing is sometimes I'm in weird moods. Like I have all these things I want to watch, but then there's some kind of crummy looking supernatural show, but I'm a sucker for some of those. So I'm like, I'm going to watch this, even though I'm sure it's going to be really mediocre. And it is, but I'll watch the whole damn season. You know? And I'm like, why didn't I watch The Wire? Like,
you know what video game for me would have translated the best into like a really well-crafted movie?
What?
BioShock.
Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that.
I think a well-made BioShock movie would be better than the game was, and the game's amazing.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Especially if you know where you're going with like the sequel and stuff, like because of like BioShock Infinite and stuff. Like if you plan that out, that could be really cool.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, for sure.
Like other video games that I love that I'm sure will make great film projects. And
I love that game, the Undercoat. Sorry, I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
you got your Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, exactly.
Went great, didn't it?
Other games that I know are kind of within film projects right now and are going to come to the big screen in some light that I'm really not excited about because I think that they work best as a game is Halo and Metal Gear Solid.
Well, Halo, I don't really know exactly how it's coming. I have no idea. I haven't read enough about it.
Yeah. And
even if I did, I can't talk about it. And then Metal Gear, has that been announced as a movie? Are they doing that?
Yeah, they've announced it as a movie. And, I just started replaying. I'm a huge Kojima fan, to a ridiculous degree.
I have to be honest, though. I feel like Halo can be good. And
I think it could be good, too.
And a big reason I say this is because I'm just being honest. You know I love Halo, so this isn't a dog of Halo. But because I'm a huge StarCraft fan, I crack the joke all the time that the people who wrote Halo loved StarCraft. Because, for instance, the Spartans are like the Terran. The Protoss are basically like the Covenant.
Yep.
The Zerg are basically like the Flood. Mm-hmm. And then Halo has an ancient race called the Forerunners that built everything. And StarCraft, they have that too. It's called the Xel'Naga. So I always thought the people who wrote Halo, it almost feels like a first person revisiting of certain aspects of StarCraft with some of their own stuff. It's kind of what it felt like to me. And I never faulted them for it because I love StarCraft. And I also know StarCraft and Halo are two of my favorite series. Yeah. So I'm fine with it. But I feel like there's a lot there to make a good movie. I was really excited when it was going to be Neil Blomkamp back in the day. And then that never happened.
Yeah.
He was going to do that movie really, and he had the proof of concept shots.
He has a horror movie coming out that I'm excited about.
Me too.
Neil Blomkamp, I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
Hollywood doesn't know what to do with him because he keeps getting attached to really big IPs and they keep not happening. He was attached to Halo. He was attached to Alien.
The Alien one never happened. And some of his ideas, I saw some of the art you showed me.
Yeah.
Looked pretty cool. Like, so I don't know. I don't get that either. It's maybe he's not compromising, and I say good for him. Like, if that's the case, maybe he's like, I want to do it this way. They're like, sure, come on board, and then they start doing studio stuff, and he's like, I'm out. Like maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
He has a new horror film coming out called Demonic that looks really cool and interesting.
It looks interesting.
But it's another thing where it's like, that looks awesome, but compared to like these big budget projects that he's been attached to, like, I'm kind of surprised he's doing that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm really excited because there's like, that's interesting. And then we have two other amazing directors that are all doing horror, which we both love. So we have Malignant, which is James Wan. Yep. And then we have Last Night in Soho with Edgar Wright. And then we have Demonic with him.
And there's more. They just put out the first teaser for Mike Flanagan's new Netflix show, Midnight Mass.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So we're getting some good dark horror.
Yeah,
if you're a horror fan, there are some great directors making some stuff. And I haven't seen a Neil Blomkamp horror film, so I'm actually kind of interested to see what he does with it.
Yeah. And I don't think I actually like when whatever they announce for Halo, I'm sure that I'm gonna be interested. But when I think of like this would work best in this medium, I think of Halo working best as a video game. Like I think of like me driving and my friend in the turret going off a jump, shooting aliens, you know what I mean? Like, that's the best version of that thing in my mind.
See, I feel like because of how broad it is, Halo can work well as a series of movies or a show, honestly. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if it's going to be a show, it needs to be a mature show. Like, it needs to be, like, rated M for mature. It needs to be, like, you know, like AMC or HBO or Showtime or like people that do like mature stuff. Like that's what to me, that's what it seems like it would work best as. Because I feel like if it has a very light PG thing, I don't think it's going to be very attractive. Like it needs to feel like it has meat to it. I need to feel like the war feels like a war, you know, like, I think, and that's kind of how I feel about StarCraft too. Like, I don't know if a PG-13 StarCraft can work, but I feel like to really show the terror of the Zerg and stuff, it's bloody and scary, and they should be treated almost like not just like a monstrous thing. They should be terrifying, you know, like, and you need a mature rating to really do that well, I think, you know. Yeah. So that's why I had said I would love to see like a StarCraft series on like HBO or something like that, where they can do what they want, like, and really do it well. So,
yeah, I could see that. I wonder how Halo will turn out. I really hope it turns out awesome.
Well, another series that you like that I think would make a good series of movies, I think those could probably be PG-13, but I think you could make some fun summer blockbuster Gears of War movies because the script's pretty simple.
You don't think those need to be rated R?
I think that they should be.
Yeah.
But I think because of the style that they are and like a lot of the set piece things, I feel like you probably could get away with PG-13 if you did it well. I'd prefer them to be rated R, but But let's be fair. If they're making a blockbuster movie for video games, they want to get their money back. They're going to make it to PG-13 to try to make sure more people can attend the movie. Like, you know, I'm sure that's what they're going to frickin' do.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm just being honest. That's probably what they're going to... And that's probably going to do with StarCraft, too. Like, if they did it as a big movie, they probably would.
I get the same vibes from Gears of War as I do from Fast and the Furious. I'm like... This is big and stupid and heartfelt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's exactly. Like so big and dumb and over the top.
And because it's big and dumb and over the top, that's why I think it's going to be like more PG-13. It's going to be like Fast and the Furious, run and gun and dumb kind of thing. Is I think what they're going to do with it, if they did it.
I don't know if you know this because I don't think you kind of stay up to date with Gears of War, but you know that Dave Bautista was trying to get cast as Marcus Phoenix in the movie.
I heard that, and I actually think I could kind of see that.
I couldn't think of better casting.
I could see that.
It didn't happen, but you know what's funny is that they released Dave Bautista's skin and mocap for the Gears of War 5 story. And
seriously?
You can play as him. Like in
okay, that is so cool.
Yeah,
that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Who do you think would be a good Baird?
A good Baird?
Ryan Reynolds.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And we got to find a Cole. We need to find a Dom. Who for Cole?
Whoo!
It's hard.
I don't know who for Cole.
Yeah, I don't know who for Cole either.
Oh.
Like my first thought is the guy from Moonlight, but even he, like, I don't know, like,
no,
the look wise, I don't think so.
You know who'd be good for Cole is shit. What's his name? Give me a second to get it.
And then Dom. If you guys play Gears, you guys know who these characters are. Like,
right,
they're like the beloved group of of soldiers that go into battle together. So
and fight giant worms.
Yeah, and Cole was a former football superstar.
Yeah.
Beforehand, and then Dom. I don't know who we get to play Dom. You know who could be Dom?
Who?
Joe Mangala or Joe.
Who?
The guy who's the werewolf in True Blood, and then he's also Deathstroke in the new Joe.
I didn't watch True Blood.
He's married to Sofia Vergara. Joe. He's in the Magic Mike movies too. Hey, I'm sure you haven't seen those though, but like,
sorry.
You know what I mean? Yeah, Joe. Oh my god! You know it's terrible. I'm so sorry, people on stream. I usually know these people.
Duh. You know who would be a great call is Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. Yes. Yes.
Let me cast this movie.
for real. Yeah. Joe Manganiello. There you go.
Oh, he played Deadshot in
Yes. If you cut his hair straight up so it's not long, I think he could be a great Dom. Like I think he could be good. He could be a good Dom. Yeah.
Joe Manganiello, Dave Bautista,
dude, Terry Crews, that's a good call.
Terry
he would be
Crews
a great freaking call.
Alan Tudyk is Baird.
Yeah,
we're in there. I'm watching that movie.
He'd be a great call.
Yep.
Terry Crews, yeah, for sure, bro.
I got this.
You do have this.
Another piece of kind of huge cinematic storytelling. What felt like a milestone for me was this is a game I wasn't excited for. And I actually played it because it's one of Jasmine's favorite game series, and she wanted to watch me play it. Was the new God of War.
Yeah,
I went in kind of blind because I played the original trilogy.
My brother wants me to play the new one.
Yeah, I played the original trilogy, and I liked it growing up. I thought it was really cool, but I also look back at it now, and I'm like, it's kind of edgy and stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which that's not taking away from any of its fun, because it's still fun. But when I think of the storytelling in those games, outside of the set pieces, I don't feel like I want to revisit them.
Yeah.
But I played the new one, and it really blew me away.
I've heard nothing but great things about that game.
I don't think there's anything but great things to say about it.
My brother's I think it's one of the best games ever made, is basically what he said.
It is, and the way it's delivered is kind of 1917 or Birdman. It's delivered in a one-shot format. It's where the game never cuts away from the experience, from cutscene to gameplay and in between.
Really?
It's one story about this trip up this mountain.
That's actually really cool. I did not
incredible.
know that. That's actually really awesome.
Yeah. And I really think when I think of people who are we need a God of War movie, I'm we don't. I feel
it's so
at this
good
point,
on its own, right?
The video game is the best way to experience this. You know what I mean?
And see, sometimes I feel that way. It's just like how when there's a great anime and they're like, oh, we need to turn it into live action. No, you don't. It was great. It's great as it is.
What about Netflix's Death Note?
Don't you start with me. I love Death Note, the anime, and that movie is nothing like
except
the
when
anime.
they cast when they cast
I like
Willem
Lakeith.
Dafoe
I like
and
Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah.
Like him as L, I can actually see that in a good movie.
Yep.
And William Dafoe was perfect. I feel like when they cast him, everyone was you immediately see it. You're yes,
duh.
Duh. Yeah, 100%. But the rest of that movie was just trash. It was so bad. And the script is, they clearly don't understand the characters, because Light was not Light. And neither was Amani Misa, who wasn't Amani Misa. She was somebody else.
I think the new rule is that if you have a shitty movie, give it a couple of years and let James Gunn make it. Give him full creative freedom.
You just give him a list of movies that bombed the first time. Exactly. You ready to pick your next one? You can do whatever you want.
Do whatever. You can call it the same thing.
Yeah, you just Death Note, and it'll be retconned. It never happened. It never even happened.
The Death Note.
Although at this point, I think Netflix would be fine with that. Someone just
Netflix
want to remake a Death Note, and we'll just go with it.
It's fine.
Okay, the last one on my list that I wanted to talk about that I think is a game series that I think could make some great movies is Dead Space. I think Dead Space, you could capture that isolated atmosphere with someone on a ship and this really foreboding, condemned experience. I think that could be a great movie series, especially if you did it well.
I have two things, one of which I'm sure you're familiar with. One, I hope to surprise you right now.
Sure.
John Carpenter's The Thing exists.
That's
the one you know. As does Event Horizon. That's a freebie. You know that one too.
Yeah, Paul Anderson.
The thing that I'm not sure if you know is about a week and a half ago, they announced a full remake of Dead Space. The first original one on modern platforms.
I know, and I don't know how I feel about it.
What? I don't even like the first game very much, but I think it sounds amazing.
How do you not like the first game?
I don't know.
It hurts.
Well,
me.
actually, we've talked about this. I do know.
It hurts me.
The reason I don't care much for the first game is because I get that you want me to be scared, but you also gave me a giant laser bazooka.
What difficulty did you play it on?
Hard.
Because in a lot of situations,
I'm not saying
you have very limited ammo, and that giant bazooka is only so helpful.
I know. It was just a combination of, and I can't really defend it because it feels a lot like Resident Evil 4, and I like Resident Evil 4 quite a lot actually.
Well, Dead Space is Resident Evil's successor, like 100%. They
absolutely
instead of ink ribbons, they have the save points. If you
totally.
save at the wrong spot, it's low on ammo. That's why I refused to pay the third one once EA got more involved, because it seemed like the first two were fantastic, and the third one seemed like it was almost arcadeized more. Because I even heard that like you have like almost infinite ammo on certain, and I was like, well, that ruins the game. Like a big part of it is
the funny thing is, even though I feel this way, I agree with you. And in fact, I've tried to play Dead Space, like seriously sit down and beat it 4 or 5 times.
And you just don't get into it.
And I've gotten like halfway through it before, a little more, but it never holds me to the point where I'm interested in finishing the story.
See, that's crazy, because to me, like that was like my favorite new series. Like I can understand everyone likes what they like, but I like the isolated, foreboding sense. Like when you get there, it's like when you get there, you already feel kind of fucked, and you kind of already feel like you almost feel like this isn't gonna end well. But like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I like how that feeling is kind of maintained throughout the entire game, and they do a really good job of doing it. Because I feel like it almost makes you have to like kind of like want to survive, like, because like I feel like a lot of people would probably give up about a third of the way through that game if it was them, because like it's just so awful, and this whole situation's just so, like and I like the fact that that's kind of Isaac's driving me. Well, for one thing, it's his girl, but that motivation to just keep pulling through. And I felt like that's something that made it different than Resident Evil. Resident Evil was more like they were looking for someone else, or they're trying to figure out what's going on, or whatever. Isaac had this really personal. Yeah.
It's personal. You gotta save the president's daughter. What are you talking about?
Oh my god. Oh. And then we don't need to talk about Infinite Darkness. Oh.
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, I think that's one that could make a good movie. Like
I think so.
And I think you could probably make 2 or 3, like a trilogy, like a pretty good one. Because there's like the whole situation with the Ark and the Mark, and like, the stone, and like there's a lot of backstory to it. And I feel like that's part of the first one could be, you can almost treat it like the first one's more of a mystery, because you don't know what's going on. It's a mystery horror.
Yeah.
By the end of the first one, some things are revealed. And with this, and maybe it could be a trilogy. Maybe the second movie, you know more about it, but there's a situation where someone, let's just say, tries to use it for a different, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the third one could be like most trilogies, you totally find the origin. And then also the final ending, I read about it and I thought it was awful. So I hope they change that if they ever do it. But like,
I didn't play the third one. I've tried to beat the first one multiple times. I've started the second one.
Second one's pretty great.
I hear a lot of people like the second one more than the first, which is impressive because how beloved the first one is.
I kind of like them about equally, which I'll be honest is pretty amazing. And the sound design in those games is so good too. The sound design is fantastic.
It really is. I totally agree with that. I could absolutely see that being a trilogy of movies, especially given the budget of like practical effects on the creatures and the blood and gore.
And like you need CG for like the spaceships and stuff, but then once you're inside, it could be a lot of practical sets and a lot of mechanics, and like almost like his outfit is almost kind of cross between like steampunky and like almost like industrial, but like industrial is kind of like futuristic industrial is almost like the feel throughout the entire ship, because they're excavators or whatever, like I could see that being a really creepy, cool series. Like and you could add more characters. You could add more characters to have more people die along the way or whatever if you want, but you still need to find a way to capture that isolated feeling that he goes throughout the script. So I would imagine they're going to have to split up to be able to do this on time or whatever, and then shit goes awry or whatever.
Yeah, I could see me liking the movie or the potential show more so than I like the game. I can see that really shining.
Yeah.
In a movie setting, which is fine because I think when it comes to experiencing horror, I think video games does it the best to like put you in a fear state on that level. Like when I've played, there are some scary games I've played where I've been like, God damn, dude, like I am freaking out right now.
Well, it's different when you have to make the decision to go in somewhere that you don't want to go
That's
versus watching someone else have to go in.
Exactly, because you're watching a movie and you're like, don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then you are put in the virtual position of like, this is a bad idea, and
you have to do it to proceed with the game,
yeah,
right? Like it's almost like
I
agree with that. It does have it's a very unique fear that I feel like with games you can get a fear that feels closer to real life than with a movie.
The scariest game I played wasn't a game. It was a PT, the playable teaser for what was going to be Hideo Kojima's Silent Hills.
Oh, I heard about that.
So I got rid of my PlayStation 4 once I got a PlayStation 5, but they removed this once Kojima fell out with Konami and the game got canceled. Eventually, that collaboration that was going to be Silent Hills became Death Stranding with Kojima, Norman Reedus, and Guillermo del Toro.
Interesting.
But they released a playable teaser, and the way you interacted with this teaser wasn't like any game. It was a puzzle game where you walk through an infinite hallway. And as you walk through these hallways, you have to find these different clues and do these things within the hallway.
And this was for Silent Hill.
It was a playable trailer, pretty much. And you keep going through this hallway and you recognize there are these like static radio. The radio keeps going off and it's talking about in this like really cheery voice about like this almost old like newscaster, like kind of like, remember the intro to Courage the Cowardly Dog? Like,
yes.
Oh, welcome. It's almost like that, like carnival-y. And it's explaining about this man who just couldn't take his family's nagging anymore. And he snapped and shot his wife and killed his children.
Oh my God.
And you're experiencing, as you walk through, you're experiencing that you're that character stuck in this like infinite purgatory and you're being haunted by your dead wife.
Well deserved.
But the way you interact with the game, like I've had to do things in that game in classic Kojima fashion that you haven't done. Like one of the puzzles, you actually have to like press these numbers on a phone or like pick up this phone and then you have to say the ghost's name into your like microphone to continue. You have to like summon her in a way.
That's awesome.
And it's the visuals in that game and the presence of the ghost is terrifying. She's like this shivery like kind of ring thing. But
that must have sucked to like think this was the coolest thing ever and then the game doesn't happen.
I talk about this just as much as I talk about that goddamn Game of Thrones finale.
Your 2 moments of severe like disappointment.
So check this out. I'm not setting myself up for disappointment, but there is a significant rumor that that it's going to happen, and it's a significant rumor that it's going to be announced very shortly. And the reason is
same people involved going to come back and do it.
Well, here's the thing. There's this third-party studio called like Blue BB Studio or something like that who keep releasing teasers for this game called Abandoned, and they're going to be releasing a playable teaser soon. But they keep releasing blurred images, and they've continued to insist that they're not related to the Silent Hills project or Hideo Kojima, but they keep releasing images that are clearly distorted images from Silent Hill, or they just released a blurry image of someone in an eye patch, Metal Gear Solid. You know what I mean?
So you think it's like a twist and they're just not telling you?
Well, potentially, because not only is it weird, Norman Reedus also just posted something on Instagram of him standing next to the bunny from Silent Hill 3. And like I'm not saying I don't want to get my hopes up because, you know, the internet conspiracy theories can get out of control and maybe it won't happen. But
that would be really cool.
There is a pile of coincidences at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there's just a
pile. That's actually pretty exciting because I'd love to try that. Because that's something I want to do on stream at some point. I still have never played the Silent Hill games, and I'd love to find the classics, especially the second one. And I want to play on like a retro game night or something because I've heard so many good things, especially about the second one. I definitely want to play it. So yeah,
they're awesome. Let me know when you do. I'll tune in.
I will.
It's been probably
twitch.tv/Vastly.
Twitch.tv/Vastly. Your Splitgate game plays a little serious.
Oh, dude, lately, bro, I've been obsessed with Splitgate, man. Like for sure. I'm loving Splitgate. Yeah. So also we tried. I don't know if I told you, but we did the Back for Blood demo this whole weekend, which is
a blast.
It was so good. Like if you're a Left 4 Dead fan, this is basically Left 4 Dead 3 with their own stuff so that they don't get sued. But exactly. But it's so good. It's really, really good. I was very happy with it. And there's a deck system where you can build a series of perks, and that gets wild over time. Like there's some crazy cards that you can get that are really cool. So.
The one thing that I hope is that they bring back the classic versus mode of having
the thing is they seem like they're really listening to a lot of feedback, especially on their Twitter page. And there have been a few people who've said the new game type is actually awesome. Like I don't want you to get rid of it, but don't you think you could have more than one game type? And a lot of us like what is it, survival mode or whatever. Like a lot of us really like that. And then I would say my only thing that I wish for that game is that the new specials are very cool, but I wish that they had, but they're basically every special that exists is like
a combination
of old ones, which is cool. But I wish there had been like 2 or 3 new ones that are completely new. Like even my friend thought of one the other day, and then I thought of one today. I was like, what if there's a special that can disguise itself as a zombie, and the only way you can know is there's like a red dot on its back that you can shoot and kill it. So like when it's coming at you, your teammate would have to see it and be like, oh shit, back up. But like if you get close enough to like try to stab it, like if you get close enough, it's actually a mimic and it transforms and like grabs you.
That'd be cool.
And so like if your friend tells you, you're like, oh shit, and you try to back up, now you're stuck against a wall though, but you're like, oh no, like it's about to grab me, and your teammate has to kind of save you or something like that. So because suddenly it would create more fear of the zombies. Like you'd wonder if every now and then you're like, oh crap, I haven't seen a mimic in a while, like or whatever. Like it could be something cool like that. Like
my favorite zombie to play in the old games was the jockey.
Oh yeah,
just because I always thought
most obnoxious. Dude,
it was so funny to me.
Just pulling towards the ledges.
People would just be running and they'd be like, "Where's Frank?" And it's like, just taking him away.
I was an asshole. I was smoker all day. Like I'll wait for them to get like separated, or someone goes back for a gun they dropped, and then I'm like, "Oh no." And I'd like pull them to like a ledge or something, and then it releases if they fall. So then you're like, now I'm waiting for the person who comes to save them.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the best.
I felt like a monster, and I was.
Or when they would hide in a small corner, and you were the spitter, and you were like, "Not safe in there."
So you felt the same way for a boomer. You go running at them. You're like, "However you kill me, you're about to get blasted."
You just walk in, gentlemen.
My friend used to love the boomer. He'd do stuff like find places where they're on the ledge, and he'd run in between them. So whoever blew him up, the person on the edge would get knocked, and then they
We used to play that like really loud like piano key, like
It's true, bro. Yeah, I always found jockeys the most annoying when I was the survivor. Like, because I'm like,
they were super
because a good person will steer you away from the team. Yeah, and then they'll time it right so the team's occupied and you just get further and further away, and they'll like lead you to some ledge somewhere that they know about, and you're like, damn it, someone get him out.
Or like into a horde, and you're like,
then your health just dwindles. You're like, I'm so dead. Like, Left 4 Dead days, man, good stuff.
The best.
They really were.
I really like that game.
Left 4 Dead 2 is still fun, like 10 years later.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been fun.
It's been fun. Yeah, it's a little bit of an off the cuff, but I hope you guys still enjoyed yourself. Like,
yeah, I know we did. I know we're excited to play more story games, and I don't know about you. I'm not really excited to watch more video game movies right now.
Most of them, I'm more immediately skeptical, and I assume the worst, unfortunately, and that's not how I want to be. Like, but that's kind of the reality nowadays. So I'm always hoping. I'm excited when I hear about projects where the people behind it are people that I trust and I know care about, don't get involved unless they really care about their project. So that tends to be when I get excited, even if it's a video game project. It's like, okay, please let this be good, you know?
Yeah, I'd be curious for the future. What I'd like to see is we're very used to novels being translated into film.
That's the most common medium. Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to see some novels translated into video games.
I think that could be interesting. I also do. I think so too.
I think the Dark Tower series would be.
I remember you saying
incredible as a video game. I would love to play that. I think it would clearly be better than a film. Clearly.
I'm not reading into that one at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine condensing like 5 or 6 books into one movie. It works out just fine.
Yeah, it's fine. An hour and a half.
Got good actors too that you just wasted too.
Just cut out all the story.
Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. Sounds great. It does sound great. How about that script there?
What script? What script? All right, everybody. We will catch you next time.
Yeah, if we keep going, we're going to start ranting about this one. But love you guys. I hope you had a great time. I am Fortune.
And I'm Dillon.
And this is Cinescussion. You guys have a good one. Bye.